this study of how we rate against the rest of the wealthy world by the New York Times in terms of COVID deaths is quite something. Just a reminder, as of yesterday, 2,600 deaths a day in this country. And for those who just sort of want to poo-poo and say, just get over it, which is sort of an astonishing perspective on that many deaths that are happening a day. Approximately a quarter of those, apparently, are from people who have been, we don't know for sure, but at least double vaccinated. And we don't know the age of those people, but I would imagine they are older. But it's still important to be careful out there, despite the fact of how much people want to pretend that this pandemic is over. And I want to make it clear, I'm not excited that it's not over.
No, well, I mean, you like the lockdowns. You've been clear about that.
Love it.
Right?
It's so great. I should say it's Will Stansel who did, sorry, it was 20% of COVID deaths over the last few months were fully vaccinated. That means at least 2. But we have like a 45% rate for the booster, I guess, in this country. And yes, of course, I love it. I mean, there's nothing more fun than to have kids and to have a debate every time you want to do something, and to live in a city where it's like one of the things that you like about living in a city like New York is to go places where there's necessarily a lot of people. Mm-hmm. And that's so much fun. And so I can't wait for this never to be over.
Right. And
which is why I am so insistent upon just pointing out the fact 2,600 people died yesterday because of COVID. Not just like, oh, they had COVID. You know, the way that the parsing...
The denialist
that we've seen, where it's like, well, they died of something else. We've had this conversation on this program multiple times. You get the flu causes you to have pneumonia, you die of pneumonia. Can you say, well, they just had the flu?
Well, it's the same thing with AIDS, the parsing of that as well. I mean, you get, people used to say that you can't die of AIDS, you die from the sickness that you get from it, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And, they died of kidney failure, which just so happened because of COVID. And so 2,600 people passed away yesterday.
But the good news is that the case count is precipitously declining.
And Omicron is precipitously declining. You're seeing a similar decline in hospitalizations. I mean, this is what follows. It's just that deaths are a lagging indicator.
Right.
So hopefully in 3 or 4 weeks, we're going to see that number also drop dramatically. Knock on wood. In the meantime, however, when you're aware that this many people are dying, that it's still possible to get COVID if you've been vaccinated, breakthrough infections happen. And I can explain this to people. Like, this is the analogy that I've sort of settled on now. When my 8-year-old son wants to go outside in October and it's 50 degrees out, it's no longer 60 or 70 degrees out, I say, wear a hoodie, dude. Just put your hoodie on, not just a t-shirt. Mm-hmm. Then you'll be warm. When he comes to me in early January and says, like, I'm wearing the hoodie and I'm not warm anymore, I have to explain to him that the weather has changed. So the hoodie is still better than the t-shirt, but now put your coat on. Like, this is like how people pretend to not understand how the vaccine works or why it's changed. Playing clips of people from, 8 months ago or a year ago when they're saying that the vaccine was going to have a certain impact. and now they're liars. It's literally like a conversation I would have with an 8-year-old.
Yeah, it's a straw man. Like they said, they pretend like the left believes that vaccines were a silver bullet, which was not the case whatsoever. And
it's not even like the left. It's just like normal people. Let's be honest. This is just
medical
normal people.
Yes.
Doctors.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah. That's who these people are accusing of fraud on a massive level to like inflate death counts.
The doctors lied. Because COVID wasn't supposed to change. It was supposed to be dipped in amber.
Yeah, and I mean, what they're doing is they know, I think, that knowledge of a novel virus is always going to be provisional and changing. And so they're basically camping out on where they can, that those sorts of, I guess, like opportunities present themselves.
And understand where this COVID denialism comes from. Largely, it is fueled by individuals and groups of individuals and classes of people in this country who want to make sure that we do not have any reason to provide material support for people in this situation. And the Biden administration, certainly it seems to me, is at the very least capitulating to these forces, if not one of those forces. There's been virtual silence. I think they recently made some point about saying maybe there would be some limited unemployment, or there would be some limited benefits that were associated with a paid sick leave provisions or something to that effect. But the fact of the matter is there are a lot of forces in this country, big Koch brother money, libertarian money, conservative money, that wants people to get back to work regardless of what's going on there.
And God forbid they develop a collective understanding of the fact that the government can provide material benefits for them and thus potentially health care as well. Here
is Ron DeSantis, consistent with that, sort of giving up the game here by saying, because if COVID is over, why would we have an eviction moratorium? Here's Ron DeSantis.
Up 30%. And so that's going to cost more on the back end for people. You also look at what the Biden administration did with CDC by having this moratorium where where a lot of the people who own these places couldn't get access to rent. So what they're now.
The eviction moratorium is a problem because a lot of these people own these places. They're not going to have access to rent.
As opposed to access to shelter.
Right. Access to housing. Access to a bed for their kid to sleep in. We got to worry about access to rent.
Yeah,
I think there's a weird passive use of that too.
Yeah.
Like meaning funds to pay rent, money.
I think it's really, honestly, they just want to adopt the language of rights. And,
It's like the Democrats talking about access to care.
Yeah.
We need access to health care. It's them. We need access to rent.
If only
not an ability to pay the rent, to receive the rent.
Like I have access to a Lamborghini. I could go to a dealership and ask for one, but I don't have the funds to purchase it.
We need access to rent for the landlords.
Also, the CDC did the eviction moratorium when Trump was president.
Yes.
And it was under Biden when that was revoked.
And the funds that were supposed to be paid out to people, it's known as like the most inefficient government program that came out of the pandemic. Like I don't know how many billions were not paid out and how long it took, but there's over $20 billion in rental debt right now. And so, they use like terms like access in order to obscure the fact that they're in favor of throwing people on the streets.
They could access those funds from the government too, but they'd rather access it from people who need to work.
That's also the point, right? Like the landlords find it more lucrative to bleed people dry and hang them over a fire pit than to use the government assistance.
We need to allow people access to being evicted.